Hello, Douglas County residents, and welcome to our district dialogue. Today, I have some fantastic individuals here with you. Both are very near and dear to my heart, and this continues our series on public safety. And there's a component of public safety that I often think gets overlooked, and that's our court system. So today we have Superior Court Judge-elect Lauren Wallace, and we have our Chief Juvenile Court Judge, the lady that keeps me in line and in check, Judge Michelle Harrison. So do you guys want to take a minute and just tell the public about how you ended up getting into service in the first place?
I'll start.
Yeah.
So I went to law school, of course, and coming out of law school, I started practicing out here in Douglas County. The judge, the juvenile court judge at that time, had some family connection, and he wanted to give me some juvenile cases to sort of get me used to what juvenile court was like. I started that process and loved doing that juvenile work. I found that I could utilize some of my past to help move forward the process that I was dealing with in juvenile court. And as time went on, I was offered an opportunity to do some substitute judging and ended up getting a part-time associate position as our juvenile court judge, and have diligently worked to become the senior judge or the chief judge in the last 4 years, about to get my reappointment this week.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
You have served us well.
Thank you.
Yes. So, hi y'all. Lauren Wallace. I have just always had the heart and the personality for service. So growing up, if there was an activity that I could be involved in, I'm jumping in. And I think this is, knowing Judge Harrison, I'm sure that's true for her also. I think you and I like to use the term servant leader, and I think that just applies to our personalities. So when I graduated from law school and started practicing law, I went into the public service realm. And so I've been a prosecutor for 13 years, serving the communities that I've lived in. And when we moved to Douglas County, of course, that's what I wanted to do here as well. So I prosecuted in the district attorney's office under Dahlia Racine for about 3 years. And as we know, sadly, Judge Bo McClain is retiring at the end of the year. So when the opportunity arose to continue serving the community that I live in, I threw my name in the hat and was recently elected to be the next Superior Court Judge.
Well, congratulations to you on that
Thank
as
you.
well.
Thank you.
So I actually today was at a luncheon for first responders and individuals in public safety, and Chief Sparks actually mentioned that our population of individuals that are the most in need in terms of restorative justice and in terms of committing crimes, breaking and entering into cars, petty things like that, that it really is our youth. And so I want to make sure that the public's very much aware that the juvenile court is a court of restoration, not a court of punishment. Explain to the public exactly what you do in the juvenile court, and if you could talk a little bit about the difference between dependency versus delinquency.
So juvenile court does have a wide range of areas of law that come before it. Dependency cases are the cases that we hear about when terms such as abuse and neglect are utilized, and generally those are cases where state services get involved. There may or may not be a need to remove children from their home and placed in foster care, and when we're really looking at the behaviors and actions of the parent and trying to provide them with the appropriate services to reunify the family. Or possibly they need services while their family is together, but just need a little extra help. Those are dependency cases. Delinquent cases are the cases that involve our young people when they are doing things that would be considered a crime if they were an adult. And those, in terms of what you were describing, the police department speaking about, are the cases that would fall under the delinquency cases. Juvenile court is a court of treatment, rehabilitation, restoration. It is not intended to be a court of strictly punishment. The adult system deals with punishment. Our goal is to help youth find the right direction so that they can avoid the pipeline to prison. And that's usually where it starts, is once they step foot into the juvenile court arena, then they are one step closer to that prison pipeline. We have found that a lot of our youth that are court involved have suffered some sort of childhood trauma, some sort of scenarios in their life that have caused adverse child reactions. And getting to the root of those to find out not why did you do something, but what can we do, what has happened to you, what can we do to help you overcome those. That is the key to trying to redirect our young folks away from the influences that they're not getting at home. Unfortunately, we have families where the parents have to work and work several jobs, and they're not necessarily home to supervise their children all the time. The vulnerability of our young people is very easy for wayward adults to take advantage of and start pulling these young people into the life of crime. And so in order to sort of try to break that cycle, we have to help the family, not just the child. It's not a situation where we can remove the young person from the home and fix them and then put them back and everything is great. If you do that and you put the child right back in the environment that they came from, they're going right back to where they were. So
that's a really interesting point that you raise, and that's actually a perfect segue into the adult court, because a lot of times we do have families that are dually involved, where the child may be before you for a delinquent situation, or they may have a dependency case that has started because their parents are now on the path towards incarceration. And so kind of from a public safety standpoint, what are you seeing in the Superior Court arena?
So we see similar things, because at the age of 17, they're then considered an adult and start appearing in either state or superior court. And you mentioned earlier the entering auto cases, and those can be petty, but they can also be an indicator of gang activity, because gangs are coming in earlier and earlier with kids and students as young as middle school and even the upper elementary school age kids. So they start out, that's how they start out, are with these petty crimes. So you want to intervene, which is great for the juvenile court system to be able to intervene before things start sticking on their record. And by that I mean, once you're a convicted felon, we know how that adversely affects people who are considered convicted felons. They have difficulty finding jobs and housing, and it really negatively affects their life. So you want to try to intervene before it gets to the point that they're considered a convicted felon. And by that, you would intervene with counseling, lots of counseling therapy sessions, drug and alcohol rehabilitation, mental health counseling, those types of things.
Well, we're going to take a quick break right now, and when we come back, I want to discuss with you both more about our accountability court systems and things that you can do from a public safety perspective to keep people from re-entering this program. So we'll be right back. Welcome back, Douglas County residents. We are continuing our conversation with Judge-elect Lauren Wallace and Chief Judge Michelle Harrison. Before the last break, we were talking about making sure that we had reentry programs, diversionary programs, things of that nature to help really increase public safety for Douglas County. So if you could talk a little bit about the opportunities that Superior Court has for expunging records and things like that so that people are still employable.
Sure. So when people are accused and subsequently convicted of a crime, we as a community as a whole do not want to hinder someone from living the rest of their life. We want them to have learned their lesson, be rehabilitated, and then go out and live their life as a productive citizen. So in order to ensure that they are able to do that, the law has several options. So let's say the person that has committed the crime, even a felony crime, they have the option to plead guilty under a first offender statute. So they can use that option if it's the first time that they've ever been convicted of a felony before. They can use their first offender plea. The second option, if it is a drug case and it's the first time you've been convicted of a drug charge, you could plead guilty under the statute is 1613-2. That's your conditional discharge for drug offenses. We also have options built into our court system to divert people who are accused of crimes from traditional prosecution. Mm-hmm. So let's say it is a first-time offender and the crime they've committed is not the crime of the century. Then the district attorney's office actually runs a pretrial diversion program. So we try, as a court system, we try to identify people who may be appropriate for those programs. And if they are, then they agree by a contract, they agree to pay a fine, do some community service, do some classes or counseling geared toward whatever crime they've committed, and hopefully that gets them back on the right track, and then they don't have a conviction on their record. And then also, if back to my other two choices with conditional discharge and first offender, if they have entered a guilty plea under those statutes, then if they successfully complete the terms of their sentence, so they've done whatever required jail time, they've done whatever required probationary period, and again with classes and counseling and treatment, if they do everything they're supposed to do and don't get in trouble again, then the conviction would be expunged from their record, which is huge for people because, again, as I mentioned earlier, it just negatively affects them for the rest of their life if they are considered a convicted felon.
And so I just want to jump in here and make sure that we're letting the residents know, because I think it's a perfect opportunity to dispel some myths. Diversionary programs and first offender programs are not created to maintain somebody in the system or to promote negative behaviors for habitual offenders.
No, absolutely not. Because what you see in the court system, you see a couple of different types of people that come through. You have people who have done something really stupid and messed up, and those are the people who are appropriate for. You're a first-time offender. Hopefully, you're not going to do this again. You've learned your lesson. You've been rehabilitated. Then there are people who you constantly see over and over again. You got your one shot. You got your second chance. And if you keep continuing to break the law and find yourself in the criminal justice system, then at some point we're past the rehabilitation stage and we have to focus on punishment.
So it sounds to me like Douglas County has an excellent balance
of
giving second chances and trying to help people do the right thing, and also keeping our residents and citizens safe when it is appropriate. And it's my understanding the juvenile court has very similar programs or situations, if you want to talk about that briefly.
So the uniqueness about a juvenile delinquency case is there is a cloak of confidentiality that comes with a first-time offender youth that comes before the court. And so no matter what happens to that youth, it does not carry with them throughout their childhood or even into their adulthood. And we use different terms than the adult system. We use adjudications, not convictions. We don't have guilty pleas. We have admissions as opposed to the language that is used in the adult system. And so the reason that there is that difference is because we know that a youth's brain is not fully developed. We know that they don't fully develop, especially their responsive frontal lobe, which is the rational decision-making part of your brain, until your mid-20s. So we sort of expect that a youth that comes before the court, especially for a first time, has just made a mistake, didn't think the situation through, didn't have an opportunity to think the situation through. So we do have a process where a youth that would come before the court for the first time that is not a very serious incident, for them to have an opportunity at diversion programming where they would have counseling, take some classes, do some things, possibly some community service, to hopefully get that youth back on the right track. And then their charges would actually, if they are successful, their charges would actually be dismissed and their record is sealed. We also have accountability courts that I know we'll get into to also help youth to continue addressing their level of needs for the higher risk youth that are involved with us. So generally, a juvenile can always come back to the court 2 years after they have completed their programming, their probation, whatever sentence they were on, and ask the court to permanently seal their record in order to avoid any potential utilization of their record down the line.
And so would I be accurate in saying we are promoting public safety because we are now making sure that we are not creating a system or a situation where some teenager has made a senseless or silly mistake, as I'm sure most of us have, we just didn't get caught. But so they have the opportunity to then still have their record sealed, go to college if they so choose, get a trade if they so choose, so that they can be contributing members to society and not, kind of a tumor on our society. So that's awesome.
And I want people to understand that it's not only helping the person who has committed the crime, but it's also helping the community as a whole. Because if you're just punishing someone, jail, prison, that's not going to teach somebody the right thing to do.
Right.
And so that's why we want to come at these sentences with people who have committed crimes. We want to come at that through the lens of rehabilitation first. Like Judge Harrison said, you want to know, why did this happen? Because we know that most crimes are committed by people with mental health issues or substance abuse issues or both. And so if we can treat and treat the underlying problem and the driving force of that behavior, then hopefully that helps the public safety as a whole, and we don't find ourselves victims of those people.
That's actually a perfect segue into the discussion in terms of Douglas County's offerings for accountability courts. So Judge Harrison, I'll let you talk first about the accountability courts we have in the juvenile system.
So in our juvenile court, we have two accountability courts, one that would be directed toward the dependency caseload, and the other one is directed to our delinquency when we have youth who are at high risk or have high needs. The dependency track is called the Family Treatment Court, and that is a program that is directed to parents or family members who have substance use issues, diagnosis of a substance use issue, and possibly co-occurring with mental illness, mental health issues, that are at risk or have had their children removed and placed into foster care. And the goal of the accountability court is to provide more attention, ongoing assistance to help parents understand that the road they're traveling on is not going to be a successful road. And ultimately, we are able to work in conjunction with all of the state offices that are involved in those dependency cases to provide the services to assist with the substance use or mental health diagnoses and work hard towards their reunification with their family. Our other accountability court is called Chance, and it was designed in mind to give our youth a second chance at trying to redirect them out of the system. These are youth that have been assessed as being moderate to high risk. They are youth that have been in the system, in the juvenile system, more than once. And there is that extreme fear of the pipeline to prison, where we provide intensive supervision, frequent opportunities to interact with the judge. It is a team approach, just as all of the accountability courts are set up to provide. Our Chance Court started out as a mental health court. We have come to find out that just about every one of our youth in the program has substance use issues. Not sure which came first, what's the cause. So we pretty much treat the co-occurring offenses, co-occurring issues with mental health treatment as well as substance use treatment.
And I know in the Superior Court we have, I believe, opiate treatment court, we have Veterans Court, mental health, and
drug court.
And drug court. Tell us a little bit about those.
We do. So our Superior Court accountability courts, again, are very much a team effort. We have we've identified people who are in need, and these are repeat offenders. So I know I've talked a lot about your first-time offenders, but the people who are appropriate for drug court are not your first-time offenders. These are people who have a lengthy rap sheet. And we know that if there's not this severe intervention, that they're just going to continue to break the law, continue to use drugs, get arrested, and it's a whole domino effect. So we identify people, and once they get arrested again, then we can send them, if they're appropriate for a rehabilitation bond, or I'm sorry, a therapeutic bond or a reentry bond. And that means that if we've deemed you as a candidate that's appropriate for one of these accountability court programs, then we try to get you out of custody, because it's a long process.
Right.
There's a lot of paperwork involved, a lot of people that need to be on the same page, like clinicians, case managers, the therapist, the law enforcement, the district attorney's office, the public defender's office, or the defense attorney that's representing their client. And so all of these people have to be in agreement with what is going to happen next, and that takes a few months. And so what we were seeing is that people were just sitting in the Douglas County Jail, waiting for this process to happen, and it was taking too long. So if we've decided that you are eventually going to get approved to be in these programs, then we can issue you a reentry bond to re-enter the community, but lots of conditions. You're getting drug screened every day. You're starting your counseling. You're starting the program essentially just in advance of actually playing into the program. But sorry, I know I'm talking a lot. So once we get you out and get you started in the program, then down the road, once everybody gets on the same page, you plead guilty into the program, and then you have about 1.5 to 3 years where you're doing this intensive treatment for mental health or your substance abuse issues. People love it. We've had great success. And yes, just the nature of substance abuse and addiction issues, there are going to be a few people who reoffend. They fall back into that, but we can continue to help you with those needs.
Well, I will stop you guys right there. I know we are all passionate about these issues and could talk about them all day long. And so we will definitely have to have you all back for another district dialogue. But I do applaud the work that the court system is doing for all of our residents and all of our community members to ensure the safety of each and every one of us. So thank you for that. Thank you all for tuning in, and we hope to see you again soon on our Douglas County District Dialogue. Thank you.